It may not have been a horse and buggy that ran over my foot. It was an autonomous vehicle. But can't we just ask who created the software?
I'm Dr Louise Messara. Welcome to Season 4 of the Future Health podcast, Future Proof, a podcast about the future ways we will work, the work we will do, and the impact of technology and scientific innovation on the future of the healthcare industry. We have a fantastic lineup of guests this season as we cover topics ranging from life-saving cars to robot lawyers and even diagnostic t-shirts. So go ahead and like, share, or subscribe now so you don't miss a thing. We've all watched the scene from The Good Wife and every other legal drama on TV. The junior associates at a big shiny law firm are all sitting around the conference room table. It's late at night. It's a battle to stay awake, but the stakes are high. The one who finds the will be the last one still on the partnership track tomorrow. They pass around the Kung Pao chicken as they work feverishly. Surrounded by towers of boxes of documents, they're scouring every page, hoping to find that critical piece of evidence before morning. But pretty soon, there's likely to be no need for the 2 a.m. takeaway. Technology Assistant Review, or TAR, provides document review 50 times more efficiently than human review. ROS, powered by IBM Watson, can read and process over 1 million legal pages per minute. And programs like Raven, developed in the UK, are able to complete 2 weeks of due diligence assessment in under 2 seconds. I mean, that's 12 million times quicker than a junior lawyer doing the same tasks manually. As technology and artificial intelligence begins to encroach on the work of legal professionals, lawyers and legal scholars have been forecasting some major disruptions to the way law is practiced and the flow-on impacts to legal education and the role of the lawyer in the future. It appears the future of the legal sector will look nothing like its past. For most of this season, we've been talking to innovators, educators, and visionaries in the healthcare sector. We've been asking what they believe is around the next corner. It's been super interesting, sometimes exciting, and sometimes a little disconcerting. But talking to these thought leaders can give us a head start in thinking, preparing, and creating ways around, up, over, and even through the challenges coming our way. Today, we're going to widen the lens and talk to a lawyer and academic about some of the key issues facing his professional group, and then we're going to consider what lessons we can learn about the future of our work from the future of theirs. I'm Dr. Louise Messara, and this is Future Proof. Welcome, Michael. Thanks so much for being with us here today.
Thanks, Louise. Pleasure.
Dr. Michael Guihot is a senior lecturer with the Faculty of Business and Law at Queensland's University of Technology, where he teaches the exciting subject, AI, Robots and the Law. His research is focused on the intersection between new technology and law, which makes him the absolutely perfect person to be with us here today. Michael, the unrelenting progress of technology and I suppose the advances in artificial intelligence are leading lots of professional groups to question the viability of their chosen career, I suppose in their own lifetime, and then to sort of have questions around what their profession might look like for future generations. Do you feel like the legal profession is genuinely under threat?
I'm going to give you the lawyer's answer straight up.
That's what we brought you here for. Yeah,
it depends.
I suppose when we're thinking about what the future might look like then.
Yes.
Maybe you could draw us a bit of a picture of what many of your colleagues might think is doomsday, but what you're envisaging as maybe, a 20, 30 year horizon of what the legal sector might look like.
Things are happening on the ground, and it's been building and building slowly over 60, now 70 years. The development of machines that can do what humans can do. Mm-hmm. And the aim is to get to that level. But we're not there yet, mm-hmm. right? But that's the aim. People are beavering away as we speak on breaking down the way that lawyers work and making it elemental.
Yeah.
And then creating computer programs that replicate that process. Now, that's happening in some of the most fundamental areas of work, including document review, contract review, right? Contract analysis, right? Legal research and legal case prediction. So in these big firms, lawyers look at a lot of contracts, right? And they may, in a big transaction, may have to look at, in one big transaction, say 10,000 contracts, right?
Yeah.
And traditionally, you get a room full of junior lawyers just out of university. You put 4 or 5 or 6 in a room. You give them a template document, and you get those 5 to review the 10,000 contracts. And that can take a lot of hours.
Surely this is the piece of work that, you'd gladly hand over. This is the piece of work that I suppose when we look at the sort of middle term sort of impact of technology, and we're talking a little bit more like, around automation rather than innovation, it's taking the repetitive task that maybe doesn't require the high skill to buy time for those young lawyers or senior lawyers to be advisors, be creative. This is, I suppose, with my medical hat on, we're always thinking about how we can reduce the repetitive, low expertise activities to give us time back with our patients. So can you see you sound like I understand the monopoly, the big law firms maybe aren't going to like that, but as a lawyer, as a practicing professional, is that appealing?
Yes. Yeah. All of this is appealing to me. I have the luxury of not relying on the money-making machine.
Yeah.
I used to be a part of that. I was a lawyer for, 10 years.
Yeah.
So I know the machine and I know how it operates. And I know the pressures that are on young lawyers. But yes, the answer is, if we can get a machine to do that, and if not as well as those 6 young lawyers, then better, then why not? Why not do it?
I think in the same with most professional groups, we have the initial fear of the loss of jobs without really the attention being placed to the work that's created for human beings to do. I mean, we're jumping a bit, but when you think a little bit about the space in law that is innately human, must be human, is there any of that in law, or can you see a role for machines to entirely replace the system?
I can't see the machines replacing all lawyer work. The professional aspects, what I call the real profession, I don't think can or should be replaced. I don't think we should be aiming for that. I think we should have humans doing this type of work. We should continue to have humans doing some of this work, because the role of the professional lawyer should be to ameliorate the law machine, to help the ordinary citizen deal with the harshness of law, because the law is harsh. Justice is hard. There's a winner and a loser, right? There is a whole bureaucracy before you can even get access to the decision makers. And the professional lawyer's role has always been to grease the wheels of that, to help the person get through that process.
Sort of be the navigator,
Correct.
if you like, yeah.
And for when the person's lost and confused and sad and shocked, to be the patient and objective person to be able to deal with the machine. Okay. And we need that. So
if we go back to what we have today, what are the areas of technology or AI, what are they offering sort of big law firms? I mean, it seems funny, but it seems like the big law firms are the places which are actually using a lot of this technology, which circularly may eat them up in the end.
I know, it's ironic.
Yeah. But if we have a think about where technology is making improvements, making things better, can you give us some examples of where that exists?
I mentioned contract review.
Yep.
It initially started in discovery, e-discovery. Now, discovery and I've spent my time in discovery. Discovery is another one of those processes, right, where in a legal dispute, the parties, before they get too far along the court process, if there's a dispute, have to exchange documents that are relevant to the case. All the documents they hold that are relevant to the case, they must give to the other side to have a look at.
Okay.
It's mandated. Now, that was okay when there were 2 folders worth of paper documents that you hand over, and you get a junior lawyer to go through. They dictate a list and of the documents, and you hand over the list, and the other side calls for the documents. Now with email and electronic documents and multiple copies, you can have millions of documents. That sort of necessitated being able to collect that in electronic form, but also then to review it.
Yeah.
Right? So for many years now, law firms have been using computers to process that large volume of documents and to shortcut that process.
Yeah.
Again, you do the job of 6 junior lawyers in an afternoon with a machine.
Are we also missing out on the training process? Is there any training?
Yes.
I mean, it seems laborious and monotonous, but is it a core part?
A junior lawyer straight out of university is looked upon by legal professionals as not that valuable. I'm generalising here, but their value increases as the more experience in a law firm they get, not in university.
Yeah, sure.
So to answer your question, the training they get is to be exposed to multiple parts of business operation, contracts, what's in the contract, correspondence, how businesses correspond and deal with each other. And they're just exposed like water over a stone to that. And similarly with the contract review. They learn what goes into a contract, how they built, and that sort of thing. So you are losing that general slow wash of knowledge, legal knowledge that comes over you.
Given that the sort of these disruptors really at the moment that we've been talking about are relating to sort of big law, should we be a bit optimistic as users of the legal system that this is going to sort of improve our access? You know, if I need help with an issue, it's quite a foreboding idea at the moment, it would even just the expense of an initial opinion on something. Is access going to change as a result of this?
Yes, and it has already. 80% of people can't afford access to the legal system. 80%.
80%, yeah.
Big business can, and that's where the money is. But you and I, even professional people, would struggle to join that race. The last 20 years where the sort of datification of law has sort of been going on despite lawyers has opened up the law freely to more and more people. Whether they can take that information and make sense of it and use it is the second part of the question, which is, do we still need lawyers anyway to interpret that information?
I mean, we've talked a bit about the change that's coming in relation to the way or the pieces that are being cannibalised by, pieces of law practice that are being cannibalised by technology. But there'll be some new legal issues as well created by artificial intelligence as sort of technology and AI is applied across all the major sectors. I'm thinking, for example, about liability issues with autonomous cars, safety of medical robots. These are all sort of a whole new areas of development of law. Do you see that this is, is this just incremental growth of the law space? Is it really not different legal issues, or, is this transforming as well?
Issues like that are propping up. So autonomous vehicles are predicted to use 4 terabytes of data an hour, right? The data. And it's not just data about the car, it's data about the person in the car.
Yeah.
So you have data in the cloud, say Tesla's or some proprietary company's ownership. Who's looking after that data and how? Is it any breach of privacy regulations we have or legislation? Is it kept safely and securely, right? So biases being created by wrong data or badly collated data, collected and collated, or historical biases that are in the data that are baked in later on when the machine gets going. Who ownership of this intellectual property, who owns creation of this legal work, if you like, and those type of issues are new, right? Because of the newness of the product. Other issues like who pays when an autonomous vehicle runs over a person, right, or runs over your fruit cart, are age-old in law, right? You find the cause of the incident, but for this thing, it would not have happened. So you can pinpoint the cause.
Yeah.
It may be that the cause was the software itself. It may have been the developer of the software that's liable. It may be the manufacturer who combined the software with software it shouldn't have been combined with. It may be the manufacturer of the parts on the car that's liable. It may be the driver who's liable. These are questions the law's been dealing with.
Yeah, so we're just plugging in these pieces to existing law.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the law is quite robust in many ways, right? And we find that it can adapt. It can adapt. We can say, well, it may not have been a horse and buggy that ran over my foot. It was an autonomous vehicle acting autonomously. Can't we just ask who created the software that allowed it to do that and then go after that entity? Person?
Yes, right.
That's the question, right?
So, I mean, we talked at the start about some of the aspects of what a profession is.
Yes.
And one of the elements of a profession is barrier to entry.
Yes.
And you made the point that it's illegal to provide legal advice unless you're a lawyer. How are we going to address a time when the robot lawyer is providing legal advice? Who's going to be subject to the sort of charge of unauthorised practice of law when it's a computer or a robot giving us legal advice?
I think it comes back to the same point, which is I think we're too, well, there's a tendency to too readily jump to these machines having agency. They're developed and created by humans who sit at their computer and create code, right? And if there's a fault in that code, then it must be the human that's at fault. An AI giving legal advice, I can't see a situation in which that will be done outside the auspices of a lawyer. So lawyers,
that's very sad for me to hear, because I had visions of like plugging in my documents and you'd plug in your documents and the lawyer would say, the robot lawyer, you know, I'm being facetious, but the robot lawyer would look at everything and say, no need to go any further, this is the answer.
Yes, but step back from that. Who is the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain, right? You've got the Wizard of Oz giving you the advice, but you pull back the curtain and you see it's either a law firm who's put up the AI in the first place, in which case that the lawyers separately will be liable, the law firm, or it's somebody who's set up the system without the protection of the professional protections. Okay. In which case they will be liable. So we see we see questions about creation of things like photographs and things, and ask, well, who owns that photograph.
But the photograph isn't going to start to teach itself or learn. So I totally take your point that we can peel back the layers and find out, well, who wrote the code in the first place. If we get to the point of developing an intelligence that then becomes self-learning,
yes,
will we get to the point where we need to be able to depose? You know, do we need to be able to put the AI in the witness box to ask about how it came to its independent decision making? I mean, there is a vision or a version of all of this where there'll be too many layers to peel back to get to the original, or can the original be responsible for what this machine has taught itself? Getting curly now.
No, we can always
peel back.
Peel back.
Okay.
We can always peel back.
So this has mostly been a discussion really around civil law, I suppose, or
yes,
commercial law. If we just throw the conversation to sort of criminal law, do you, are we facing some of the same disruption there, or do you feel like criminal law is a protected piece of law that we're going, we need to have those 10 people like us in the jury box forevermore? We need to have a human judge forevermore, making those sort of nuanced sentencing decisions. I think I read something to say there are some programs already looking at algorithmic sort of sentencing,
yes,
and the like. What's your view on criminal law in the future?
It's happening, right? There are now programs operating in the United States that are working to decide who will re-offend, right? Who is more likely to re-offend. And so
at the time of sentencing?
Or just bail applications.
Applications, okay.
Yes, bail applications. They've created the system based on historical data and what turned out to be a bit of a loaded questionnaire, right? And it turned out that the model was twice as likely to recommend incarceration or reject bail for black people in the United States than for white people. That's a rough statement, but that's what happened. Whether you let that go alone or you have a judge involved to look at that decision and either override or let it go, the sort of human in the loop, is a decision we make as a society. Now, for hundreds of years, we've had a criminal law that has made sacrosanct almost the liberty of the human, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think we should be very careful before we allow machine alone to make a decision. Having said that, when the machine does make a decision and recommends somebody not get bail, it's very hard for a judge to reject that. We see now judges being, when somebody reoffends in a violent way perhaps, the week after we say, they were out on bail, and then the next question is, what judge allowed that to happen? So the blame comes straight back to the judge. If they've got a machine telling them this person's free to go, this person must be locked up, it will be very hard for a judge to reject that advice.
Yeah.
Because the machine told them so, and we have a tendency to believe and go with the machines. I think it's called algorithmic bias, right? We'll go with it. But also it's a switch between the offence and the blame. So it's a breaker. If a judge can say, well, the machine recommended it, I agreed with the machine, then it's kind of an out for the judge. If they don't go with the machine and there's a reoffence, is it doubly as bad? So they're kind of caught in a bind there.
I mean, I suppose just before we move on, it's important to always reflect data in, data out, so rubbish in, rubbish out.
Correct.
If we have a computer system that looks at the history of how we have incarcerated people,
Yes.
and not at the appropriateness of that incarceration over a history of people,
Yes.
we're going to be starting from the wrong starting point to begin with, which I presume is what's happened in the US
Yes.
with its system. As an educator in a law faculty, what discussions are taking place, if any, around the future of legal training and the changes law schools might need to make to sort of adapt to these new realities?
It's a hot topic and it's high on our agenda. We have a number of subjects that are particularly directed at new technologies. I've got my unit. There's others on privacy and data ethics and a number of other technology subjects. But we're also building into the whole curriculum, thinking about technology and how to use it, how it will affect the law, and how it will affect legal practice.
I mean, we're talking a lot about that in health. We talk a lot about the sort of the future skills and competencies that doctors will need in the future, nurses, physiotherapists, speech therapists. And what keeps coming up is this idea of, I suppose, the ability to be flexible, that you're going to have to continually be able to learn and develop and adapt to a system. It's not going to be, you've left uni at 21 and that's, close the books and you're done, and now you get to be a professional for 30, 40, 50 years. That sort of era is over. We talk a lot about communication and teamwork and all of these sorts of elements in healthcare. I'm just wondering if there are any specific attributes that you would add for junior lawyers, that, people going into law, maybe it didn't matter before, but looking to the next 20 years, they really need to be able to do this or have this.
I think they need a fundamental understanding of data and how it's gathered, how it's tested, how it's used, and the pitfalls in erroneous or error-filled data and processes around that data. So I think they need an understanding of what the problems are that can happen with data, from collection to cleaning to right through the system, testing, partitioning, etc. They will have to diversify, right? They will have to learn how to work with machines, because they're coming in. In Australia, it's a slower process than in the United States and Europe, where it's happening more quickly. There's more. It's like when VHS and it came in. That's a video service for the young ones. It happened overseas. It all happened, and then we got it. It's kind of the same thing that's happening now. All of this stuff is developing in the US. It's being embedded in legal practice. It's happening, and then in 5 or 6, 10 years, I'm guessing, right, we'll get it fully formed and going.
Okay.
So, to quote the House Martins song, it's been happening slow, then quick.
I think it was Bill Gates used to say we always expect things much faster.
Yes.
And we underestimate.
Yes.
So, and we underestimate what will actually happen
in 20
years.
There is a fear or whatever of AI, right? That it's going to become general, or there's going to be a point in time where AI takes off and we're done. That no more humans. But that's a long way off, right? We're still. Somebody compared it to a trip to the moon. So if a rocket ship trip to the moon, we're still under the apple tree waiting for the apple to fall on our heads. Was the analogy. We're still at a really nascent point of technology development. Now, I said ChatGPT looks like a miracle, and people are giving it agency and asking whether it's human-like. But sensible people who know more about this than us are saying, no, it's just computer. It's just a series of code guessing which word comes next, and statistically putting that next word after a block of words.
Michael, we could talk forever.
I reckon we could.
But thank you, Dr. Michael Guihot, for being with us today. It is an exciting landscape, and it is something that we're just going to have to wait, watch, and see what happens. But a lot for us in health to learn from you in law. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
So go ahead and like, share, or subscribe now so you don't miss a thing.